Hello, our task today is to work in one of the setup tables. We're going to be working in the field trip event setup table. Now before we look at that, let me show you where the field trip events show up. They are in the request form, in the field trip request form, and they are a required field here, field trip event. By default, you're going to have the standard field trip, and you can make it automatically be selected if you'd like to. You may also, though, choose to add some other field trip events into your field trip request. Now let me explain a little bit of the difference between the field trip event and the athletic trip event. The athletic trip event, remember, you could pick multiples, so the coaches could indicate if more than one team was traveling at the same time. The field trip event, only one can be selected, and the reason for that is the design of the field trip event is to allow transportation a way to change the rate per mile of a field trip. So let's say, for example, your regular rate per mile is $1 per mile, but you can set up a field trip event that will allow you to charge a different rate per mile than your regular rate. So maybe if you would allow an outside agency, for example, to take your buses and you wanted to charge them more, you could set them up with a field trip event called maybe outside agency. Some districts, utilize that and will set up field trip events. Now, I do have other districts that don't change the rate per mile, but they do want a way to indicate maybe a specific group or organization is taking this trip, and so they will set up a field trip event, not changing the rate per mile, but just a way to be able to select that. The field trip event does show up on the trip ticket for the drivers, so the drivers would see that particular event. So how do you set up your field trip events? We will go to our Setup Tables tab, and then there is an option here on the left, the field trip events, and you'll select that. Now notice here in this blue box, these are some more information about the rates, the mileage rates, and it gives you a little bit of information about how the program looks at mileage rates. The first thing that the program's going to look at is just your trip types and rates table to establish the rate per mile, but that can be overridden if you use field trip events, as we have discussed. The vehicle types can also override your vehicle mileage rate, as well as the yellow bus budget codes. So those are the different things that can override your trip types and rates table. Now, in order to create a new field trip event, it looks very similar to the athletic trip event. It is very similar table. You have a create new button, you have a delete button, and then you have your field trip events. And just like we did on the athletic events, if you wanted to just make a change to one of these, for example, you would just simply click on the name of the event. It will open the table. You can click the edit button, and then you can change information here. Maybe instead of 50 cents per mile, the competition event is going to be 75 cents per mile. There is a default checkbox if you wanted to set this event as your default. What that would mean is that this one would automatically be selected in the request form. When the requester opens it up, they wouldn't have to select it. It would already be selected as the default, and so you could choose to maybe set up one of these as your default, maybe the standard. But anyway, you'll make your change, and then you would simply click your submit button. If you needed to delete one of these, just like we did in the athletic, you would simply use the little checkbox here beside the name of the event, and then click on your delete selected field trip event button. That would take that one out of your list, and create a new field trip event. Click that button. It's going to open up your table, and then you can add in the name of your new field trip event. Put in your new rate per mile. If you want to set it as the default, you can, and then click your submit button, and then it will add that into your list. Many districts do not have field trip events other than the one standard, and you certainly don't have to either, but as you consider whether or not you want to add field trip events, if it's something that you need to be able to change the rate per mile, that's the way, one of the ways to do it. Or if you just want to be able to create a way to designate a particular type of event, maybe a group, club, or organization that's traveling, and you want it to have it listed up there on your field trip request form. Just remember, only one can be selected of your field trip events. So if you decide to use this table, then you're ready to do that. Thank you very much.